Hello, everyone. Welcome to Durrett's Take. We've had a very eventful weekend, and there's a certain couple topics I want to get over, and then there's some that I'm going to talk about in my next podcast leading up to the draft. But for starters, I want to start with the big trade that happened over the weekend, and that was with the Chiefs and Ravens. So the Chiefs get Pro Bowl offensive tackle Orlando Brown, and then they get Baltimore's second round pick and their sixth round pick in 2022. And then the Ravens get, obviously, the Chiefs first round and the 31st pick. And then they get the Chiefs' third and fourth round pick this draft, and then their fifth rounder in 2022. So now from understanding that Orlando Brown played left tackle for a season because there was an injury to the line, and so he filled in and he excelled. The Ravens apparently the Ravens wanted him to go back to right tackle, but he didn't want to. So then that's where the conflict arose, and that's why the Ravens traded him. So now the question is that who won this trade? Remember, I go over this every single time. Who won the trade? Who didn't win the trade? Was it a tie type of thing? For this, I think it's clearly the Chiefs win this trade. That's my stance on it. You get a bona fide player, Pro Bowler, to protect Mahomes' blind side. The Chiefs already got like a center for the Patriots, Joe Thuney, and then they got two other offensive linemen from the offseason, like including Kyle Long, a nice veteran. So now they got starters along their O-line now. Now, I do think they need to draft some O-line depth with their few draft picks this year, but that's not the here or there. Now, I think this is just awesome, like I said, for Kansas City, because the problem for the Ravens now is that, yeah, like you don't want to overpay for a player. I mean, let's like Mahomes or something. Like you don't want to over. So I understand that regard, but it's just like to give up a Pro Bowl tackle, it's like it's not necessarily going to be easy to replace. You have to hope that one of your draft picks that you use on for an offensive tackle, you just have to hope that he turns into Brown, because if not, then it's going to be harder, for Lamar Jackson to run around, and Lamar Jackson's blind side isn't going to be protected as well, which could lead to some problems. So that's why I obviously think the Chiefs won that. Again, the Chiefs have to kind of figure out the money situation here because they're overpaying for a lot of players, but this is obviously a win for the Chiefs. I already thought they were going to go back to the Super Bowl and potentially win it this upcoming season, but now this help confirms my theory there. So here's for my main topic that I wanted to go over today. So the College Football Playoff Committee discussed different formats, for the College Football Playoff, 16-team, 8-team, and even 16-team format. And I thought that was interesting. Now, the critics will say that the 16 teams is just way too much. You can say that 68 teams in March Madness bracket is way too much. I mean, after all, the top two teams, Gonzaga and Baylor, they made the championship game. But the journey that we took to get to that point, though, was awesome and spectacular. And let's just say there was only 24 teams in the March Madness bracket. We wouldn't have seen, Oral Roberts go to the Sweet 16. We would have not seen Oregon State made a Elite run. And we wouldn't have seen UCLA Final Four run, for that matter. This is why I feel like 16 teams could work. I understand that football's different, Like, let's say Alabama, let's say they face a 16-ranked team, and let's use the best Group of 5 team from last year in Cincinnati, and they faced each other. Bama would win easily, you think. Most likely. But you wouldn't know for sure. I mean, Georgia was a top 10 team last year, and Georgia needed to win a field goal just to beat that Cincinnati team in the Beach Bowl game. So anyone can beat anyone on a given day. For the critics who say this just can't work in football, look at the FCS playoffs right now. They had a 16-team format, and if those smaller schools can easily make this work, and they've been doing playoffs for a long time now, like this amount, then why can't the big schools or the playoff football committee figure this out? What I decided to do is look at what the 16-team format would have looked like based off last year's committee rankings. So number one would have been, Alabama versus 16 BYU. You cannot tell me what do you think the game. be a blowout now because like Bama versus BYU, yeah, it could be a blowout, but it's like, but you also have to think about with these matchups. Not only you're not necessarily for blowout, you're looking, okay, is this going to at least be intriguing? Is this going to at least be juicy or exciting, or it will get me to a television type of thing? And I think Bama versus BYU would be an interesting matchup. Now I think BYU's defense wouldn't be able to stop Alabama because no defense can stop Alabama. I think the lowest points Alabama scored this year was, what was it, 34 Notre Dame, 38 with Notre Dame, like in that live game. Like that was the lowest they scored all season. So it's like BYU wouldn't be able to stop them and all. But it's just a matter of that high profile BYU offense. It's like they didn't get. I mean, Coastal Carolina was the only team that slowed them down. But it's just like it would have been interesting to see like how they would have fared because would have. Because if Ole Miss, if they could score 55 points on Alabama defense, BYU's offense could. Now, of course, Alabama's defense got better on as the year progressed. So that that's why Notre Dame and like even Ohio State wasn't able to score 24 plus in their games because they improved on it. But still, it's like I feel like that would have been an interesting matchup to watch. And then for the 8-9 matchup, you have Cincinnati versus Georgia, which is funny because that's what we got in the bowl game. So we know how that one would go. But then I guess I'll go with the rest rankings first and then go back. So then you got 5 Texas A&M versus 12 Coastal Carolina. And I know Coastal Carolina lost the bowl game against Liberty. But still, like this would be a fascinating matchup here, because a lot of people think, oh, you got to take A&M automatically. SEC versus something. This is no contest. You might want to rethink that, because with Coastal Carolina, the way they play, they do a semi-triple option. So you get a lot of triple option elements, kind of like your Navy and Army and all that. But then there's some pass wrinkles in there, that the military academies don't have, basically, or are not good at. And that's what makes Coastal Carolina so dangerous offensively. Now, defensively, yeah, A&M can do what they want probably against their defense. Although they still have some good players in that defense, don't get me wrong. But that would be kind of an interesting, low scoring. Coastal Carolina will run the ball a lot, therefore eat the time, so limit the amount of possessions for A&M has. That's how Coastal Carolina was able to upset BYU, was limit the amount of possessions they would normally get. So I'll take A&M to win there, but I would think that's a very good game. Like, it may come within a touchdown. Like, you never know there. And then you got 4 Notre Dame versus 13 North Carolina. We already saw how that game went. And for 3 quarters, that game was pretty close. It was pretty fun to watch. So, North Carolina could have easily made the upset there. And then you got 3 Ohio State versus 14 Northwestern. We saw that game. Northwestern gave them all the trouble they could have. It was Ohio State. Besides the Chandler game, it was Ohio State's second worst game of the season. It's the reason why Justin Fields' stock has not been as high as it should be. It's because of a game like that. So it's like, even though it's a 3 or 14 seed, which 14 seeds get some upsets, we saw even in this year's bracket, Abilene Christian upset Texas, but it's just like, that would be an interesting game right there, even though it's a 3-14 seed. And then you got 6 Oklahoma versus 11 Indiana. Now, of course, with the way Oklahoma's playing in the season, I would take Oklahoma. But again, I don't think this would be an automatic type of thing, just because Indiana, even though they lost their star quarterback for the season, midway through the season last year, it's like they have a very tough defense. Their head coach gets them to play harder and all that. I don't think it'd be an easy out for Oklahoma necessarily. And then you get 7 Florida versus 10 Iowa State. Again, another fascinating, interesting matchup here that can come down to the wire. I would take Florida if fully healthy, but that would be an interesting matchup. And then Clemson versus Iowa. Now, this is the one matchup where you got me here. Like, I'm not intrigued by this, and I think Clemson will win easily. So that's the one. Okay, you got me there. So now to go back though, you would have then 1 Bama versus 9 Georgia. We saw Alabama dominate in the second half of Georgia to eventually win by 21 or whatever there. But that wasn't with JT Daniels as quarterback. Georgia with JT Daniels as quarterback went undefeated and looked way better towards the end of the season. So I feel like a rematch there would actually make that pretty interesting. And I wouldn't have Bama favored by 21 points there. It's like I feel like Georgia would be able to contend with Bama there and make it a good game. And then you got A&M versus Notre Dame. Hey, that's an awesome game right there, because some people thought A&M should have been in the playoffs, not Notre Dame. So that's a good game right there. It showed, okay, who really deserved to be in the playoffs. Then you got 3 Ohio State, 6 Oklahoma. Again, I would probably take Oklahoma for the upset here, the way they were playing towards the end of the season. Like, that would be a fascinating game there. I would have loved to have that game right there. And then 7 Florida, 2 Clemson. Again, this is a very enticing, interesting game here. I would have loved to see this one because Clemson's defense, as you saw against Ohio State, is not the greatest anymore. And Florida's offense is so like spectacular. It would have been like a 40-40 shootout type of game. It's just like I would have loved to see that one. So again, and then you would have a Clemson, and let's say I take the upset in 6 Oklahoma there. I would take Clemson still, but that'd be a good game. And then Bama versus Notre Dame, and we already saw that once. And then basically be Bama versus either the winner of Clemson or Oklahoma. But I'm gonna go with Clemson here. And then it probably would have been similar results again to what Ohio State was. But again, like the road to get there though, didn't that sound a lot more fun? A&M playing Notre Dame, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Florida, Clemson, Bama rematch Georgia, or even in the first round where against Cincinnati, Georgia, like we saw earlier, Oklahoma, Indiana, Florida, Iowa State. Like wasn't it, like those are just all fun matchups. That would be pretty cool to see. Now, I feel like in order to do a 16-team format, you definitely have to change things up. Like, for example, I don't think conference championship games matter that much at all. So I just feel like you can have a regular season conference champion and get rid of that. So now it allows you an extra week for the playoffs. And obviously you want to have a 2-week gap between a bowl game or the championship game, whatever. Like you'd have to play once a week. And not have as, because you get like 3 weeks to a month to prepare, for like a bowl game. But I feel like that probably wouldn't have to be the case. But again, that's fine. And then you'll probably have to do, just because you could try to find neutral sites game for all this, or at least, for regional matchups. But it's just like you can just do what FCS does and just do it at the home stadium, till the Final Four maybe or something like that. So again, I feel like this is the reason why. Why I've just laid it here. I feel like this is the reason why a 16-team format can necessarily rule it out. I feel like it could definitely work here. Now, would that be my preference? I would actually say no. I feel like 8 teams is good enough. So you have all the P5 champions plus the best group of 5, and then 2 at-large teams. And those 2 at-large teams doesn't have to be both Power 5 teams, and most likely both SEC teams. It could be any G5. It could be any conference there. So that you can get the 7th best team, 8th best team there. So, and again, as you saw with the next round, the top 8 would be a pretty good matchup there, in my opinion. But yeah, 16-team format, like I said, if it was decided upon, I would not be mad with the decision on. I think it would work out. So that's it for my podcast today. I will make another podcast, maybe 2. I haven't decided. I'll have to wait and see. But I'm definitely going to, make one more at least before the draft to go over my final mock draft. Thank you very much for listening. Please subscribe to my channel, tell everyone about me. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.